This is a brief tutorial on searching for scientific literature. And this is important in junior seminar as we try to learn how to find and interpret scientific studies. So first off, before you start searching, you have to be able to know what you're going to be searching for. So you can search of things of interest, things that you find or talk about in your courses, something that might come up with a family member, like a pathology or a drug. You can also find information from news stories. That's how I find a lot of things by reading the paper and I want to know whether or not a study was done or interpreted correctly in the news. I can check them out that way. And then as you learn about a particular area and become an expert in it, you learn the researchers in that field. And so you can actually stay up to date with what particular researchers or a group of researchers is doing because you can find information by their names. So you can look by keywords. So for instance, in our class, we're looking at nutrition and cancer this semester. You could look by last names. For instance, if there's a particular person that you've heard their talk or another paper by them and you're interested in finding information that way. A couple places to search. And these are the main ones, and I've listed them in order that I personally have used them. PubMed is a compilation and a database of over 23 million publications. If the government funds it, you will find that study in PubMed. If you notice, the word stands for publications and medical put together. So it's basically geared towards biomedical research. Same with Biomed Central. For other topics, Google Scholar would work. It's driven by Google, and so it's driven by keywords and people again. And then I also want to point you to our own library. The library has its own search engines that you can use, and a very helpful tool is the interlibrary loans. So even if you find a paper using PubMed or Biomed Central, you might not have access to the actual article. Many journals charge a fee to be able to see their content, so you have to have a subscription, just like you have subscriptions to magazines or newspapers. The general fee can be between $30 to around $75, and so libraries who hold the subscriptions can interloan to one another, and that generally comes at a very low cost to the individual. So I want to go through some examples. And the first one that I'm going to look at is Google Scholar. So over the summer, I was doing some reading, and I found this article titled "Facebook is Bad for You." And so I wanted to see what the actual research that was done that this article is talking about. And so how I would do this for Google Scholar is that I could either look for Facebook studies or Facebook linked to well-being, or a very narrowed way is to take the author's names, come to Google Scholar. And so when you go in general to Google, I'll show you how I got here. I just put in Google Scholar and it directs me to Google Scholar. Alright, plug in their names. I'm going to remove this University of Michigan. And you can see here are articles by these authors. So the news story that was talking about how Facebook is bad for well-being. So I can click on the link. And this happens to be published in a free online journal. And so you can see it brings me to the actual primary article. There's the methods section and the results from the study. So if this were something that I wanted to print out and read or bring to class, you can go to the actual PDF. So this is how it looked when it was printed in the journal. And then I can print it out. Another article that I was reading this summer was actually focused on our course, and we looked at these in class already. But this is about fasting in cancer. So how caloric restriction actually made cancer cells more susceptible to chemotherapy. And so if I don't want to take this layman's journal, it's just a news journal, I don't want to take their interpretations of these studies to heart. I want to look at them on my own through my own scope and interpretation of science. So I want to find these articles. So a couple ways I can do it. You can see that there's links here for the paper. So you could try to find that link. One way to do it. It will bring me to PubMed because most biomedical papers are published on PubMed. And you can see here's the actual journal. And this article is free as well. And so you can see here's the actual primary article. Now, most news stories don't have those links to make your life easy. So we'd have to come to this news article and find the name, Valter Longo. I'm going to copy and paste that into PubMed. And here you can see 8 results. So there are 8 papers that this author's name have pulled up. And so if you have an individual who has a very common name, not all those papers might be by the same author. They could be many individuals. But this was looking at starvation and cancer, so we could look down the list and see perhaps if there are articles that fit what the news story was talking about. There's a couple things that I want to point out for you. If you look, you can see these articles are noted with free PMC articles, and so if I click on them, I can pull up the article right from here. Sometimes the articles will not be free, and you have to do a little more searching. So let's search with a keyword like cancer and nutrition. You can see there's 848 right here, 848 results for that. And so to go through 848 hits would be a very difficult task. So there's ways that we can narrow it down. You can narrow it down to like the type of cancer. So if we had breast cancer and nutrition, you could see we bring it down to 113 hits. Let's say I was just interested in reviews. So I could click reviews on the side here, and you can see the reviews that pop up. And you remember reviews are different than primary articles. If I only want to see free full text, I can pull up only those that are free by looking at my options and filters here on the side. So here, these are just articles that are free. But you have a lot of options to filter by. You can look at abstracts, you can see. You can put in an abstract if we want to increase the hits per page. You could look at recently added, publication date. You can search by first authors. Okay, so that ends the brief tutorial. I hope it gets you started on finding articles online. Of course, if you have any questions, you can always come and see me, or you can also ask at the library.